Good evening. Welcome to the regular scheduled board meeting of the Canastota School District, November 10th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Just as a reminder, fire exits are located at the places I'm indicating here and in the back. In the event of a fire alarm, if this occurs, please move immediately to it in a calm and orderly manner to the nearest exit. Routine matters. Resolved upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby approve the following routine matters. The Board of Education minutes from October 13th, October 27th, and the CSE recommendations that are in the packet. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Tim.
Second.
Lauren. Any discussions, corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. This is our first of two public comment periods. If anybody would like to come and address the board. Okay. Next, we have a presentation. Mr. Crosby, I'll let you. Is your microphone on, Mr. Crosby, I hope?
Can you hear me back there? There we go. Okay. If I can invite my family, and then I can also have Mr. Faustino and Mrs. Mullen join us up here, please. For those of you that don't know, this is my oldest son, Carter, my son, Mason, and my wife, Jill.
Good evening. Last year, C&M Consulting made a commitment to the district to actively support the STEM program and create an environment that was an interactive learning space for all of the students in Robert Street. We were excited and proud to help fund the program and start the first ever LEGO League for the district. In 2020, the school year has looked very different. There was a greater need for supplies and materials to keep this program growing. With the help of Ms. Malone and Mr. Faustino, we were able to help provide this district with over $1,500 in new supplies and materials for every student in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. In addition to those supplies, we are also excited to announce that we are pledging another $1,000 to help with the purchase of additional kits and science packages for this year's program. On behalf of C&M Consulting and the Crosby family, we would like to present this Canastota Central School District with this check to help continue the growth of the makerspace area in Robert Street, County Bucks.
Future board president right there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's thank you.
Very well.
Okay, no old business, new business. Number one, resolved upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby award the low bidder contract to Corporate Floors USA, Inc. for a total of $91,800 $810 for the 2020-21 capital outlay project. May I have a motion? Wes, you guys turn your microphones on. Make sure, please. Make sure. Thank you. Any discussion, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby approve the 2020 school tax log adjustment log. May I have a motion? Any discussions?
Just for the public, can you explain what this is? If you want to comment?
I signed it. Where'd it go? So got it there.
Hello. It's the tax reconciliation. We collect taxes up until October 31st. So the county puts everything together. They owe us the difference. They collect all the way to the spring and they pay us back the difference in the spring. So that just goes on record exactly what we collected and what we're owed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Committee reports. Safety.
No.
Facilities.
Facilities, we did meet on the 14th, that was after our board meeting, so we met the October the 14th. We discussed, obviously, this capital outlay program that just was approved tonight under the recommendation. We did discuss where the current capital project sits. It's still at SCD, but have not gotten our final approval back, even though the request for responses did go back to them. We haven't heard back.
It's in the final stages, so hopefully soon.
Yeah. And the only other thing we also talked about was the DASNY grant, possibility with the extra $20,000 would be allocated towards, hasn't been finalized yet.
We applied for it, so we're just waiting to hear back.
So that's a $200,000 grant that we have applied for. Hopefully we'll hear back on it. And the intent there would be to utilize those funds towards learning technology and new desks to replace some of the very aging equipment that we have here in our facility. That's it.
Awesome. Any other questions for facility? Policy.
Policy is not met.
Academic committee. Good. Okay. Good. Okay. Audit and finance did meet this evening to go over budget transfers, the treasurer's report, extracurricular. Mr. Panuccio is already working on our budget calendar, and that's set up for some time frames, but let's see where the rest of the state goes and where we're at with that. But it's that planning as it was. Mrs. Niles pointed out here, did we just do this? So we're right back into that. Any questions for finance or audit? I don't think I missed anybody. Board comment period. Okay, I just have one thing here. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. I want to thank everybody who has served, who is currently serving, and who may future serve going forward to serve our country. I want to acknowledge them as being Veterans Day. So thank you. Superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Just earlier this evening, before the board meeting, we had another parent informational forum. It looked, I don't know what our total final numbers were, but it looked like we still had pretty good participation. This is still, this is something that is not a requirement. If everybody recalls, back in the summer, districts were required to engage families over multiple sessions virtually, where we could talk about the reopening process. We did have strong participation, so since then we've had several, as we moved into the school year, that were not required, but I think were still beneficial. Especially now that we have a couple of weeks under our belt with the reopening of Peterborough and Southside, and with Robert Street scheduled to go to everyday in-person instruction for students who were in a hybrid model starting Monday. We thought it was timely to give the community an update, so we did provide an overview of what was going on. I think very critical to that process was having Eric Feist from the County Health Department answer a number of the most frequently asked questions that we have. A lot of the questions that he clarified, I think, and that we do have a tape of that session from tonight, so if people want to look at it later, we're able to attend. It's about a 45-minute session, and people can check that out. But we have some really good comments from him related to impact on the travel restrictions that are in place. A lot of people had questions about that. We wanted to make sure our staff, our families had good information. What can you do, what can't you do? If you were to travel outside, particularly outside of New York or our border states, that's really where things become more complex as far as what testing is required and those sorts of things. We also talked about the fact that the state has redefined what puts districts or communities in some type of restrictive zones. So if you've been watching the news, you'll hear a lot about yellow zones and red zones and orange zones, those sorts of things, and so there's clarification of that. I would say related to that, one of the most common questions we've received is what happens if we become a yellow zone or an orange or a red zone? Well, if we're an orange or a red zone, that means that there is no choice in the matter. The district has to function fully through a virtual format. If we're in a yellow format, a yellow designation, that means that the district would have to meet a number of pretty lofty testing standards, of which there's wide acknowledgement in the region. There's probably not capacity to do that. So for example, if we were to remain open but be a yellow zone, you would have to test on a weekly basis 20% of the total school population. So if we're talking about staff and students, if we're looking at over 1,500 people, then you're talking over 300 people every week would need to be tested. And not just tested, continue to be tested, 20% each week that you remain open. So I just want to mention that because people have been asking about that because they watch the news and they see, for example, Onondaga County, a large portion of Onondaga County now is in the yellow zone. And so those schools and communities are struggling with, can they actually meet the requirement? And it's going to be a tall task with the thousands of people tied to school districts that would have to be tested. So obviously we're not there yet. We hope for the best. We received some data as far as what the rolling numbers would have to be to put us in that category, and we're still a ways away. It sounds like, from what Eric Feist updated us on, from being in that area. All in all, again, I think it was a positive meeting, and we'll continue to offer those sessions if people are interested. One of the things that we wanted to start offering under the academic committee umbrella was not only more of these reopening sessions where we can engage families, talk about things that are timely related to our reopening, but we also wanted to dig into other things that, COVID or no COVID, we're concerned with and we want to talk about. One of those things is the badging and micro-credentialing program that was starting to get off the ground last year and then was stalled by COVID. So we're looking to put together, and probably can nail the date down before the end of this week, a date in December that we will make available an informational session to our families to highlight the options that we have for allowing our students and staff work with local businesses, regional businesses, community organizations, so that kids can engage in learning that is relevant and tied to the local community, which, in my opinion, is one of the most important things we can do, is bring relevant learning that impacts our local community. So that will be announced again later this week. I already mentioned, we're excited to have Robert Street join the open 5 days a week group on Monday. I know Mr. Faustino and his staff are putting in a lot of work. This meant rearranging rooms in some cases. It meant maximizing space that are available. It meant using different space entirely in order to accommodate our students in a safe way. I just want to keep reiterating, I know I sound like a broken record, but we in no way will compromise the safety standards that we've used from the beginning of the year. So we will never compromise a standard to get one more student on a bus or one more student in a room. We'll need to find a way to make that happen, or we won't be able to make it happen under those circumstances. Also want to thank the Peterborough and Southside staff, because we're a couple of weeks into the reentry, and this is Ms. Carnahan here, and you know, great job, because I think you can see a lot of happy kids coming back to school. So a lot of happy faces with staff members who are glad to see them back, and so great job with that. We understand there's no perfect way of avoided large spread. You know, we've had only 2 cases to this point in the district, and they've been isolated, knock on wood, to this point. We understand that it's a large and increasingly growing issue in the community. So we're not naive to that. We understand that we need to keep taking the precautions that we have to this point. We'll continue to do to try to keep everyone safe. But in the event that we do have any issues come up, we are able to switch to remote instruction, as we did just a few days ago when we had a positive case. So we're getting better at being able to roll with the punches, and we'll continue to do that, but let's hope that we are able to get as many in-person days in as possible. Later on the agenda tonight is the hiring of our new Southside principal. I'm excited to be able to announce this. This was the culmination of a long process where we had multiple committees involved in the process, representing our instructional staff, support staff, parents, and our supervisors. We were really pleased with the response. We had 33 applications for the position. The successful candidate went through multiple rounds of interviews, and we're pleased that process has resulted in the recommendation of Mrs. Vanessa McLowry to the position of Southside principal. So again, in normal circumstances, we would be scheduling a meet and greet and scheduling opportunities for you to get to know her. As her first day approaches, her first day in the district will be December 7th. Because of the COVID challenges, we know that it's not as easy as it sometimes is to be able to allow people to get to know people. So we'll be working on some things to help that transition be as smooth as possible. We want to thank Mrs. Kirsch, who's done a terrific job in Southside over the last several weeks, holding down the fort, and she's going to be a part of the transition process as well to make sure everything moves smoothly. So again, looking forward to welcoming Mrs. McLowry, and we know she's going to do a great job here at Canastota. Finally, I wanted to mention something about winter athletics. And maybe before I mention winter, walk back and talk about the fall season. Because I do think that Mr. Condon and our coaches have done a great job of allowing our kids to have a season. It's gone pretty smoothly considering all the obstacles. There were a lot of things that had to be put in place. And so good job with that to everyone and to our families who were supportive of us maintaining the standards that we set. So the season went well. We even had a few nice sunny days that we could compete under. With an eye towards the winter, we know the winter is presenting special challenges at this point. There was some confusion in the media. It was reported that the start date for winter season was November 30th. The communications we put out indicate that it is December 14th. And the reason for that is Section 3, at the local level, Section 3 made that decision in light of the fact that they were still trying to get additional information from the state regarding particularly high-risk and medium-risk sports and what we could or couldn't do. So it looks like that was a good decision probably, seeing that we're well into November and still waiting for more clarification. So we don't have all the answers that we want to have. At this point, Section 3 fall winter sports would not start until December 14th, with more information to come on what is or isn't allowable or what types of restrictions. And you can look on our website as well, because there is a modified schedule for the remainder of the year. We have what is called Fall Sports 2, which is, for us, would impact football, cheerleading. That would move to March. That would essentially become a March and April sport. So time will tell. A lot of things have to happen. Obviously, in the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to what is the circumstances in the region, and what can we or can't we do. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully our kids will be able to participate. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? I'd just like to comment, thank you to all the staff, everybody who's doing everything they can to get our kids back into school. I know that it's a lot, and I know people have been very creative, so I want to thank you guys for doing that. I'm going to read a letter a little bit later from a parent who it's been very much appreciated, the creativity that our district has done. Anything else? All right, personnel recommendations. All appointments are pending clearance and fingerprint, resignations and retirements. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby rescind Susan Merrill's letter of intent to retire. I have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby accept Tessa Hines' letter of resignation as a permanent bus attendant effective November 11th, 2020. I have a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of school, the board does hereby accept Jeffrey Abraham's letter of resignation as a permanent substitute teacher effective at the end of the day on November 6th, 2020. I have a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved, on the recommendation of the superintendent of school, the board does hereby accept Janelle Powell's letter of resignation as a permanent bus attendant and school monitor effective October 19, 2020. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Permanent appointments. Resolved, on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board does hereby appoint Tessa Hines as a permanent bus driver at $23.32 per hour effective November 12, 2020. May I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved that Austin Nojan is hereby appointed on a probationary basis to the tenure area of ENL teacher with the understanding that the named individual does hold a New York State certification appropriate to or required for that position. That the probationary appointment shall commence on November 12, 2020, and that probationary appointment shall expire on November 12, 2024. And that the named individual to be eligible for this appointment upon tenure, upon expiration of the probationary period, shall be necessary but not sufficient that the individual has received an annual professional performance review rating of either effective or highly effective in 3 of the 4 years of probationary service, and has not received an annual professional performance rating of ineffective in the final year of the probationary appointment, is based on the rating derived in compliance with Education Law Section 3012D with a prorated salary of $52,309 plus bachelor's, master's plus 30 hours effective November 12, 2020. May I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby appoint Vanessa McClowery as the building principal assigned to the Southside Elementary School at $92,000 prorated effective December 7, 2020 in the tenure area of principal. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I got two.
Second.
Good. Okay, that's fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Substitute appointments. Resolved, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby appoint Mary Ann Helsley as the substitute food service helper at $12.31 per hour, effective November 11, 2020. Have a motion.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby appoint Mary Rowitz as a substitute bus attendant at $15.17 per hour, effective November 12, 2020. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Tim? Kathleen, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby appoint Janelle Powell as a substitute bus attendant and school monitor at $15.17 per hour, effective October 20, 2020. I have a motion. Kathleen, Tim, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the board does hereby appoint James Reese as a special education tutor for homebound instructions at $49.44 per hour, 5 days a week, for 1 hour each day, effective November 12, 2020 through June 30, 2021. May I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the board does here appoint Gregory Palladino as a substitute teacher aide at $13.51 per hour, effective November 12, 2020. May I have a motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Coaching. I didn't have any coaching. Other. This is our second and final public comment period. If anybody would like to address the board. No, you sure? Well, we're almost done. I did have one email, and just to remind people and on the internet, you can submit your questions to the board like you're here if you're uncomfortable with coming to the meeting. And this one here I want to read. This is from Tara Skinner. Good afternoon. This is to the board and to Mr. Antebello. I finally had the time to sit down and check out the junior senior high virtual open house. I wanted to share my compliments and thank those involved. It was nicely done. This year has been different, some good, some bad. This was positive in my book. I hope it continues in the future as a replacement or a supplement to traditional open houses. This was a terrific way as a parent to hear about our kids' classes and how grading works without rushing crowds or the chaos of a typical open house. Thank you, Tara Skinner. So we've been very creative in all the buildings of different things we've done, so this was a very nice thing too there, so I wanted to highlight that. Anybody else? Okay. Future dates. There is an Engage Canastota Educational Fund meeting on a week from Wednesday, November 18th at 5:30. Sorry. And our next Board of Education meeting is December 8th at 6:30 right here. I do need a motion for an executive session to discuss a contractual issue. May I have a motion, please? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We're in executive session. We are not coming out of executive session with any actions tonight. Thank you.